Hello. Good evening, and welcome to the Leadership Platform. We are excited this evening to spend our evening, part of our evening with you, but more excited that you have made the time to connect on the Leadership Platform. We appreciate you. We are so grateful that you make the time every Saturday at 7 p.m. to discuss and share ideas about how we can grow as leaders. We have developed this platform specially for you so that we will meet you at your point of growth on your leadership journey. There is so much we have to learn, there's so much we have to know. You don't know what you don't know. That is why we encourage you to connect with us on the leadership platform and also to invite your friends and especially those of you leading organizations to encourage your staff and your executives, your senior people, and everybody to connect on this free platform where we are sharing very valuable information on how they can lead better. So you are all very welcome. Those who are joining us for the first time, we appreciate you and we want you to know that we are here to add value to you and we cherish your presence. Those who have been joining us since the beginning and who continue to share the platform and participate, we believe that you are learning and you are growing. The feedback has been amazing. So we encourage you to share with your friends, with family, call everybody around, share the links, the Facebook links, the YouTube links, share it as widely as you can, because we are going to have a very interesting and educative subject this evening, which is important to all of us. Now, if you are here, please just go ahead on your Facebook or YouTube and introduce yourself. Please follow us on our YouTube, on our Facebook, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our various social media handle on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook. Go to our website, cta-africa.com. Go to all our social media channels and please chat with us. Introduce yourself, write your name, your organization, if possible, where you are joining from, so that we will know you and we will be able to connect better with you. Now, this evening, we have a very important subject. It is said that each one of us have a certain level of madness, but it is so common with all of us that we don't recognize it as illness. The way our brain works and the way we think, sometimes create a lot of problems for us. But the challenge of mental activity for leaders is even higher, because leaders are thinking, leaders are learning, leaders are leading other people who are coming with different idiosyncrasies, with different personalities, with different needs, with different challenges in their lives. And the leader is supposed to lead every person as an individual. So if you're leading 10, 20,000, 2,000, 5,000 people in your organization, how are you as one person supposed to, be able to lead all these people and still keep your sanity? It is very important that you address the health of your mind so that you'll be able to focus on your job of leading, but also so that you don't affect negatively the followers, the other people in your team. As a lot of the time, leaders have imposed their own insanity and ill mental health on other people, and it's been disastrous. So this evening, we are going to discuss this subject, and it's so important. And we have a very able hand to help us discuss this subject. Our speaker that we have announced, Dr. Mrs. Mary Anane-Mensah, is an accomplished psychologist and Christian counselor and a lecturer. She is currently the chairperson of the United Nations Crisis Management Group, the psychosocial sub-working group of the United Nations Crisis Management Group. She's a founder and lead resource person of Time Help, which is an online coaching support platform for total image enhancement through self-awareness and development. She's also the chairperson of the board of Happy Family 243, which is an international NGO. She's a resource person at various conferences. She has a master's in professional faith-based counseling from the International Theological Seminary in Bradenton, Florida. She has a PhD in biblical counseling from the same university. She's a certified coach by the John C. Maxwell. She has over 20 years of experience in international human resources management. She currently works for an international, one of the UN agencies, and she's contributed a lot to make the world a better place. She has an extensive experience as a trainer and internationally and also across 10 African countries. She's a lecturer at the College of Counseling and Psychology. She's a member of the Ghana Psychology Association and member of the Ghana Academy of Christian Counselors. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that Dr. Mrs. Anane-Mensah is more than able, more than competent to share her thoughts, her experiences with us this evening as we all pay attention and listen to Dr. Mrs. Anane-Mensah share her thoughts on how the leader can protect his or her mental health. Doctor, you are very welcome, and we thank you for making the time this evening to join us on the leadership platform. Once again, please share the links, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and invite your family and friend to share this important subject. Thank you very much, Doc. You're welcome.
Thank you, Coach Sam and your team. Thanks for having me. And thanks to everybody who has joined us tonight to be part of this session. There's always a joy to come to you for this kind of interaction. Mental health is a subject that concerns everybody, and it's something that affects everyone, no matter the age, no matter the gender, no matter the background, and whoever you are. Because mental health issues can be very significant in what we do and what happens where we are and our general disposition. And so mental health issues are quite important. And to kickstart this, I just want us to take two questions just to have a feel of how we ourselves are relating when it comes to mental health. And so we'll have those two questions displayed, and we'll quickly choose our answers to give us a fair idea about what issues people are grappling with generally. So if we could have those questions on the screen. So whilst we are waiting, are we sharing the questions, please?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. To what extent have you felt any of the following I sometimes feel a burnout from my work. Do you agree? Strongly agree, disagree? Please just type your responses in your chat box, in your Facebook, in your YouTube comment section. Please go ahead and let's hear from you. I sometimes feel a burnout. Do you? I feel it strongly sometimes. Let us interact on this. Yes.
Okay, so I think we can have just about 2 minutes to get the answers to that, and we'll proceed.
Yes, 30 seconds.
Okay, that's fine. I hope the answers have started dropping. I guess our time is up.
Yes. Yeah, and the comments are in already. I can see Mariam and Ponsan strongly agree. Next, Perry Ofori agree. Mary Anderson agree. Benny Wells disagrees. Joshua Nkrumah agrees. Papa Akowa Menu agrees. Shadrach Owusu strongly agrees. Anna Jr. Feel strongly. Yes. Edward agrees. Laurentia Ama agrees. So many people agree that they sometimes feel, burnout. Now, the next question is on the screen.
Okay.
Do you sometimes feel emotionally drained? You can go to that. We have 30 seconds also on that. And let's see the responses. Desmond agrees. Oseado Samuel agrees. Say Salami agree. Nalati Lati agrees. All right. So, Mrs., you can take over from here.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Coach Sam. And so the responses show that people can identify with mental health in one way or the other, the effects that it has had on them and how they felt. And so when we talk about mental health, what exactly is it? And the WHO helps us in defining it. It says that a mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own ability, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. And so mental health gives us that kind of awareness and the consciousness of all our own abilities and capabilities. And it helps us to deal with the stresses and strains of life and to contribute productively to the society in which we are or to our community. And so when we have mental health. Even when we have situations that affect us emotionally, we are able to bounce back. We have that resilience to bounce back to our normal self, even if we go through any emotional turbulence. And so that is a sign that mentally we are healthy. And mental health is something that can go wrong. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your status, it doesn't matter your race or whatever. Because there are many circumstances that may affect our mental health. So our social and financial circumstances, biological factors, for instance, like hormonal issues, and when certain things in our bodies are not working the way they should, it can lead to mental health issues because the body thrives on balance. And so sometimes when there's chemical imbalance, certain hormones are being secreted too much or under secreted, they can all lead to mental health issues. A social status, where maybe we don't have a good social support network. And so when we have to face any problem, it's like we are open to all the heat that comes to us without having people to fall on, without having people to rely on. It can affect us mentally. Financial issues can affect our mental health because if we have things to do, things that are very important, and because of financial issues, we are not able to do them, it can affect our mental health. And so the overall importance of mental health cannot be overemphasized because our state of mental health affects our general state of well-being. As the saying goes, a sound mind in a sound body. And so mentally, if we are sound, if we are aware of everything that we have in terms of our capability and our capacity, what we are able to do and what we can't do, and to contribute in a meaningful way, then we are well on our way to having that sense of fulfillment. And it is positive in the way it helps us in feeling. On the other hand, if it's not too good, it begins to affect everything around us. We are stressed emotionally, and once we are stressed emotionally, it can have an effect on our physical well-being. For instance, I have had cases where people have had some hallucination, be it auditory or visual. And when I spent time to interact with them, it became very clear that it all started with something that didn't go well. So from the mental issue, it started affecting them. And as they continued with that concern, it started affecting everything that they were doing. And it resulted in this condition for which they needed treatment. And so even in our own lives, in our everyday interactions, we see that when anything happens to us and emotionally we feel unbalanced, we begin to feel everything else. From a mental health situation, we can have a headache, we can have an accelerated heartbeat, we can feel dizzy, sometimes we even feel nauseous, we have pains in certain parts of our bodies and all that. It all started with a trigger concerning our mental health. And because the body is made to thrive on balance, if one aspect is not too good, it begins to affect every aspect. And as leaders, as Coach told us from the beginning, There's a lot that we have to deal with. And I normally tell people that as a leader, everybody else is allowed to go to sleep, but you are not allowed to sleep. As a leader, everybody else is supposed to have you help them, and you are not supposed to have problems. And so there's so much expected of leaders, and very few people stop to think of how the leader is coping. And in all, we must realize that every leader is human. And so we have our human feelings, we have our human shortcomings, we have our weaknesses, we have things that stress us, and we have things that help us, and so on and so forth. And so we've all been there where sometimes you have to go on despite how you feel. You have to go on because people expect so much from you. At the beginning, my mind just went up to a day when at the office, a day that started very normal. We had a plan for a certain changeover. And when the time came, those who were supposed to leave for the new people in terms of service providers to take over were reluctant to leave. So it became an issue. Now, with the kind of place where I work, you can't use violence to resolve issues. And so we have to use diplomacy. Even if the person is not cooperating, you still have to use diplomacy. And so at the end of the day, we ended up leaving the office from when we went in the morning. I was able to get home. In fact, I left the office after 3 a.m. That was working from the morning. Got home about 4 a.m., went to bed, and I don't know how long I was able to sleep because by 7:30, I was supposed to be back in the office and function like everybody else. You know, very few people knew what had gone on. It wasn't an excuse because I had functions to perform and I had to go through the day, leaving the office that day very close to 5 p.m. I don't know how I was able to do it. But one thing I know is that when you are mentally resilient, it helps you to weather certain storms and still stand on your feet. And so a good mental health is like an important reservoir that you can draw on in the day that you need that extra energy, in the day that you need that extra something to keep you going. And so it's very important that we take good care of our mental health. Now, the kind of people we are also has an impact on our mental health. We come in different forms in terms of our makeup, our emotional makeup. What clicks with one person may not necessarily click with the other. And so I normally like to explain this in terms of temperament, because everybody can identify with one form of temperament or the other. And in doing this, what I want to do is that I'm going to speak about the dominant temperament trait. And so if I mention a particular temperament, it may be part of your makeup in terms of temperament, but I'm talking about the dominant one. And so I'm going to mention just one and explain and then go on to the other. And I'm going to deal with 5 temperaments, not 4. So for those who are used to 4 temperaments, I deal with 5. So as we go on, we'll all get to understand and know which one is considered as a 5th temperament. And so normally, whether the person is an extrovert or an introvert has an effect on what makes them have optimum mental health. And so when we talk about someone who is extrovert, for instance, people who are sanguine, they are very outgoing, extrovert, fun-loving, you know, that kind of individual who wants to be everybody's friend, and so on and so forth. And so a leader who has that trait as a sanguine, who is a happy-go-lucky, fun-loving, sometimes boisterous, they are always out there because they are for fun and they thrive on relationship. And so a leader who is a sanguine will normally have stress if they don't have high level of interaction with other people. If they are forced to play a role that keeps them in the background, they don't have the opportunity to be out there, to say hello to everybody, to smile at everybody, to wave at everybody, and really connect to people. And so we have to understand ourselves that once you are that fun-loving, extrovert, sanguine type who will enter a meeting in a breezy fashion, sometimes they are, especially if they are ladies, forgive me ladies, but if they are ladies, their perfume will normally announce them before they appear and all that. And so when such a person who loves attention is playing a role, a leadership role that keeps them in the background and they don't have the opportunity for much interaction, it can be a source of stress which may lead to mental health issues if it's not identified. Then we also have the other one, the choleric, who is a leader. Most of the time, they appoint themselves to be leaders, even when people have not appointed them, because they love to dominate. They love to be the ones issuing instructions and commands. They love to be in charge. They love to execute projects. They love to have people listening to them and taking instructions from them and all that. So a leader who is choleric in nature, who doesn't have people to dominate, who doesn't have people that they can issue instructions and commands to, who doesn't have like a project they are pursuing, deadlines to meet, driving everybody to get the work done and all that. A leader who is choleric and does not have that kind of environment will have mental health issues, because the fact that they are not out there getting people to do things can stress them out. And that reminds me of a famous army general in history who we are told conquered most of the known world at the time. One day, one of his generals met him, no, one of his subordinates, sorry, met him sitting quietly somewhere. And when he approached, he realized that the general was actually weeping. And he was surprised, because for such a strong man who is known to be a conqueror, to break down and be crying silently somewhere, he was surprised. So he asked what the issue was. And the general said, "There's no more wealth for me to conquer." And so that sums up what it means to the person whose dominant trait is choleric, who doesn't have anything else to conquer because of where he's placed as a leader. It can be a stressful situation which can result in mental health issues if he or she doesn't get the necessary attention. Then we have the introverts, the melancholy, for instance, who thrives on order and reliability. And so wherever they are, there has to be a lot of order. They are task-oriented and not people-oriented. And so they prefer to be given a task that they can execute at their own pace. And such a leader wants reliability and orderliness from everybody who is serving under them. And so if for any reason the people working with them don't show that orderliness, don't show reliability and trustworthiness, it can really drive them against the wall and can give them mental health issues if they don't receive the necessary intervention, especially when it's over a prolonged period of time. Now, all these things I'm saying, it's not just a one-off thing, but if the person's position as a leader places him in that kind of situation where he's faced with this kind of thing for a very long time, then they'll begin to exhibit traits of mental stress, which can affect everything else. Sometimes it can even affect the relationship that they have with people, and the people working with them, they begin to have issues with them. Then we also have the other one, who is a phlegmatic. Anybody who has phlegmatic as a dominant trait likes to do things at their own pace. they will normally want to do tasks. They are also task oriented, not so much people oriented. And because they want to take their time and stick to the job and do it well, because naturally they don't have a lot of energy to expend. And so such a leader would prefer to be working quietly in his small corner and doesn't like much interruption. And so when people are interrupting him, reminding him that, boss, we have to beat this deadline, we have to do this and that, it can really stress them out because they are not people who move at the pace that people want. They have to move at their own pace. And then the fifth one, if we have a leader who is a supine, whose dominant trait is a supine, who is a leader, but he likes to serve. And so no matter who he's working with, he's normally at the serving end because they get a lot of fulfillment from serving people. Now, the reason why they do that is that most of the time, they are not people who are able to take decisions easily. And so if the person who has this supine trait is in a leadership position and is faced with the responsibility of taking decision for others all the time, it can be a problem for them. If they don't have people assisting them, if they don't have people helping them in that role, it can lead to mental health issues born out of prolonged stress. And so it's important for every leader to know himself. Ladies, forgive me if I say himself, I'm actually talking about everybody else. And so it's good for every leader to know themselves, know what their dominant traits are, know what makes them accomplish much, and what compromises their effectiveness. Because so you know yourself, it becomes difficult to live with yourself, not to talk about living with others. And so to help us do that, we want to look at a few general tips that will help us go through the rough and tumble of leadership and still be upstanding and mentally healthy. Now, we all talk about having plans. It's a good thing to have plans, long term, short term. But what also helps every leader is when we have the habit of daily plans. Because when we have daily plans, it takes away a lot of the stress. We are better able to share our vision and get people to come along with us without the stress of trying to make people understand things all the time. It also helps to establish a routine that will help us to establish a pattern. Because once we get into the routine of doing things, it means that we use less effort. Because when we establish a routine, our subconsciousness gets used to the routine and we are able to move through a lot of things without expending a lot of effort. And so it helps us to conserve a lot of energy, mentally and physically. And so it helps us to be mentally healthy. It's always good for a leader to concentrate on building a strong and effective team. When we do that with a strong and effective team, we are able to spread the responsibility. And so it's not all up to the leader. As a team that we can end up coordinating, because then everybody is holding part of the task and doing it, and we are coordinating. And so we are not tempted to micromanage, but we are able to rely on other people because it's proven effective since we ourselves have taken the time to build an effective team. And so it's important that as leaders to help us mentally, we need to have that kind of an effective team in place so that it's not all about our responsibility as leaders, but it's about team responsibility. And then to help us, we also need to learn to delegate tasks. Because if we fail to delegate, it means that we are taking on more than is healthy for us. Because no matter how hardworking we are, no matter how much we know, no matter how high our capabilities, everybody has a breaking point. And so it's always good to be able to delegate so that we don't have to do it all. We have people helping out. And we, of course, keep our eyes on whilst we have a bit of a breather and can work at our own pace. And once we are able to also establish a culture of follow-ups and getting regular updates, it takes away a lot of the stress. Then because we are asking people to brief us, we are following up, we are abreast. And so that stress of coming up with things when suddenly we are required to give information or produce some report will not be there, because the regular updates puts us on top of the situation, and it really helps us. We need to minimize pressure in our work, our home, and in our personal life. In other words, we need to achieve a healthy work-life balance. Know when to work, when to say that it's enough for the day, when to transition from there and go home. Because after work, there's family. After work, there are friends. After work, there's still life. And so it's important to minimize the pressure in our work, in our home, and our personal life. Otherwise, we'll be carrying on too much. We will have too much expected of us. People will feel neglected. Others will keep making unreasonable demands on us and all that. And we'll be operating in a lot of confusion and be doing a lot of firefighting instead of having a balanced way of working. And so it's important. Now, the thing that we also have to remember is that we are human. And as human as we are, we have challenges. It's not everything that we understand. We don't know it all. And so we have to have the habit of discussing our challenges. It's not a good thing to try and play the hero, because when we do that, we suffer in silence. And sometimes by the time we think of having help, it may be a bit late, and we may have caused a lot of harm to ourselves mentally. So it's always good to discuss challenges, of course, with people we can trust, with the people who we know can help us, with the people that we know we can rely on. We also need to have time to have a lot of fun, because in the corporate world today, we are supposed to be working smarter and not harder. But sometimes it's difficult not to work hard and smart, because there's so much. The competition is getting keener. It's placing a lot of demands on our leadership skills. So sometimes we may forget to have fun. But hey, it's important that sometimes you just let go and be yourself. Be part of a group that you can have fun with. It's not all about work. So we need to pursue hobbies. We need to pursue a lot of activities that is not so much part of work as we know it, but the fun, something that brings us laughter, that's something that brings us joy, that makes us, that brings out the little child in us and makes us laugh as if we don't have any cares or worries in this life. So it's very important that we deliberately and consciously make time to have fun. It's good to pay attention to physical discomfort and not just say that, oh, it's only a slight headache. It's only a slight ache in the foot. It's only a slight this and that. Sometimes when we overload ourselves mentally, it can result in these physical discomforts. So anytime we have this kind of physical discomfort, it's always good to check and see what is causing it, which means that we will have to talk to people who are able to help us. Meditation and other mind relaxation exercises help us to unwind and remove the clutter from our mind. Regular and healthy physical exercise is something that a lot of people, because they are so busy, it's from one thing to the other, from one meeting to the other, one corporate activity to the other. Sometimes we forget that we need to make time to go out there and exercise our bodies. And so we need to have that regular exercise routine to help us to be healthy. Because remember, a sound mind resides in a sound body. Build effective network for required support. What is the kind of network you have? You have people who can bring you up to speed on technology, on how to do things better. not using so much time and all that. It's important that we have that kind of support network to help us to get better. I mean, a mutually beneficial relationship that helps us to learn from one another and make things better for ourselves so that we reduce the stress of work. We also need to avail ourselves of expert therapy because when from time to time we need effective intervention. Sometimes we need to talk to a counselor, sometimes we need to talk to a health coach, sometimes we need to talk to the doctor because we are taking on so much. And from time to time, we just need to check. There are times when we just realize that we are not happy. We are not our bubbly selves. We know that there's something wrong. And the interesting thing is that sometimes you know there's something wrong. You don't really know what it is. But trust me, when you talk to the experts, they are able to help you put a name to the feeling. They are able to help you identify exactly what you are going through, and they are able to help you to know what brought it about and why it's going on. I remember this case of somebody who had a hallucination for about 14 years, and almost every year there was a relapse. And so it came out, I mean, after a couple of sessions with the person, it came out that it was all due to an emotional trigger that happened years before, more than 10 years before they started feeling that thing. And so till the trigger was identified and addressed, the person was receiving some help, which was suppressing it, but every year it just blew up. And so that is why we need that kind of expert intervention. And so sometimes it may mean making a little investment in your mental health, but it's worth it. Positive outlook to life. That is one thing that we cannot stress too much. We all need that positive outlook because, hey, life goes on. Life can be fun. And remember, happiness is a decision. And so let's have that positive outlook. Decide to be happy and go for happiness. It's important. At the end of each day, reward yourself with adequate sleep because a lot of people deny themselves of adequate and quality sleep. And that can be the beginning of mental health issues. The experts tell us that ideally, we need about 8 hours of sleep every night because it is when you are sleeping that the body is able to regenerate itself and correct itself, get its balance so that it can serve you better. And so if you are not allowing sleep to make you available for your body to work on you, it can be a big issue. So we all need to have that in mind and reward ourselves with a good night's sleep every day. Mental health goes with good nourishment, spiritual and physical nourishment. So depending on what your values are, your spiritual values, uh, is it prayer, meditation, having fellowship, and whatnot, reading of scripture and whatever it takes. We all need something that keeps us going, that will help us to regenerate, revive, rejuvenate. And the importance of good nutrition cannot be overemphasized. There are foods that promote healthy mental well-being, and there are others that are not too helpful to us in terms of our mental well-being. And so when we talk to the nutrition experts, they are able to guide us to know the kind of things to eat to boost our mental health. And so it's very important. And we all need to be kind to ourselves, to do the things that make us happy, that bring us joy and fulfillment. Because anytime you are happy, you are doing yourself a lot of good. You are making yourself very, very healthy. Because as the good book tells us, a merry heart does a lot of good like medicine, but worry dries up the bones or crushes the spirit, depending on what version we are using. And so it's important that we protect and safeguard our mental health by doing so consciously, having a plan that works for us and keeps us healthy. Thank you very much. So, Coach, I think we are ready for the Q&A now.
Yes, thank you, Doc. Thank you so very much. Lots and lots of takeaways. And I'm not even going to try to attempt, but if you have a good mental health reservoir, it is able to support you in difficult times. Keep a balance. Do not play the hero. You don't know everything. Don't worry about trying to be everything to everybody, and treat yourself well. Well, check your body, feel yourself. Thank you so much, Doc, for this amazing presentation. So ladies and gentlemen, we will go on with our questions, but I just want to ask Doc. Doc mentioned one of the things that affect our mental health as lifestyle. Now, what aspect of the leadership lifestyle, has an effect on our mental health? How does a lifestyle as leaders affect our mental health? I want to start with that, and as we go to the chats and questions on Facebook and see what questions people are coming up with. Doc.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, in terms of lifestyle, a lifestyle can be healthy or unhealthy. Overindulgence and unhealthy habits like excessive alcohol consumption, because we know that alcohol has a direct effect on the brain. And so when we overindulge in alcohol consumption, it can lead to mental health challenges, and is improving severally that people who overindulge because of the kind of brain altering properties that alcohol can have. It can affect us mentally, same as the abuse of hard substances. They all have that kind of effect, and it can affect us mentally. And so it's important for us to realize that one. And then unhealthy lifestyle habits like not exercising adequately. Sometimes some of us get into the habit of sitting at every opportunity. They are sitting at the office, they are sitting in the car, they are sitting on the couch when they get home. It's from one position of sitting to the other. It can be harmful to us. And so all the things that don't get us to let our body work optimally, things that affect our mind so that it doesn't work optimally, all those things constitute the lifestyle. And an unhealthy lifestyle certainly can affect us mentally.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now we will go to Facebook, and we are having so many positive comments. Say thank you for this presentation. David Adai say great presentation, Doc. Now, Ratile say thank you so much. I've really learned a lot. Gifty, thank you, Doc. Jerry, current generation of direct reports don't pay attention to details. So we have to redo their work when we delegate. What can we do? Doc, this is a question. What can we do when the people you delegate to don't do their work well, and you have to come and redo their work? And what can you do, Doc, as a leader?
Yeah, that means that there's a training gap, because when you are delegating, you want to make sure that whoever you are delegating the task to has what it takes to perform that task. And so if you identify a training gap, you have to invest in training them. You have to invest in training them. And as you invest in that training, and then you assign or delegate the task, then you know you've equipped them enough to be able to deliver. But when we just look at the certificates they brought and we assume that they can do it, that's when sometimes we get it wrong. So we as leaders need to train people and ensure that they are able to perform the task that we delegate to them. And training shouldn't be a one-off thing. It shouldn't be a one-off thing. Every time we identify a gap, we should help by offering them training so that we build their capacity to tackle, or we enhance their capacity to tackle the task delegated to them. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Doc, so much. We keep receiving very positive feedback. Christiana Agbenyo says very impactful. Spio Abedu says very insightful presentation. Now I have a question. Great topic. It will help me to understand the people around me. How do we blend the various temperament characteristics in a team? So that's a question from Anna Junior Agbe. All right, so let's take that one. Next comment from, so the question from Anna is, how do you blend the different personalities, characteristics in a team? Can, one question just escape, all right, but maybe you can take that one. Baba says, can overemphasis on risk avoidance result in one's mental status? So let's take those two and then let's see how we go, Doc.
Okay, so let me take the second one first. Overemphasis on risk avoidance.
Yes.
Whether that can lead to mental health issues.
Yes.
In which case, you may be going towards a phobia. Because everything involves a risk. Everything we do, even when you sit down to eat, because you don't know what is in that food, you are taking a risk. By just sitting down to eat, especially when the food came from a source that you may not be too conversant with. Moving from one place to the other involves a risk. And so what we do is, whilst taking precautions, we still venture out there, because without taking risk, you don't get anything done. Now, if you see that you are risk averse to worrying proportions, that is, you are overly sensitive to risk taking, then I'll say that you need intervention. There may be something buried deep down in your subconsciousness that is making you do that. And so when you speak to a counselor, for instance, who is able to identify that thing that lies buried, which is making you avoid risk to such a level that it becomes a worry, then they are able to help you navigate away from that point in which you got stuck emotionally, which is responsible for you being risk averse to understand that it is compromising your forward march. Then that can help you. But a certain degree of risk aversion is always good. That's why we have something called calculated risk. We all take risk, but of course we calculate before we take the big leap. But when it is too much and you are so conscious of what could go wrong, and because of that, it cripples you from taking effective action, then it's become a problem.
All right. Yes. So thank you so much.
And then the temperament one, how to blend
the
different temperaments. Yeah. it takes knowledge. You know, you can't just look at people and determine what temperaments they have. Sometimes what you do is, having worked with them, you can determine what is their area of strength. That is just because every temperament has its strengths and its weaknesses. If you want to do a thorough job, you may need the intervention of a temperament specialist, where we can administer a test to everybody. And it's fun to have those tests, because on the surface, it looks like you are playing. By the end of the day, it's going to give you such detail about your emotional makeup in terms of your temperament. And so you can look at that as a guide, depending on the seriousness of the task you are delegating and the suitability of the person you are delegating the task to. Now, to give you a quick example, normally somebody who is a typical sanguine, you want to be careful as to how much you hold them in confidence. Because you see, by their very nature, they are relationship oriented. And so relationship matters a lot to them. And so if you are going to delegate a task to a sanguine, that requires high level of confidentiality, then you want to have that sanguine trained so that they will know that in spite of the fact that I'm a friendly person, relationships matter to me. Relationships matter to me. In this particular instance, it's not about relationship, it's about confidentiality. And so you can, on the surface, look at their strengths and weaknesses, but if you want to do a more thorough job, like I said, then you need to bring in somebody who is an expert in helping you determine people's temperaments to the minutest detail. Because most of the time, people are not just one temperament. They come in as a blend. Many times, we have a few people who may be one temperament, but most of the time, there is a blend. So it takes expertise to be able to correctly assign people's temperaments and make optimum use of their temperament strengths. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Since you are talking about temperaments, there is a question, two questions on temperament, so I'll just add them so that you can complete the thoughts there. The first one is the 5 temperaments, are they compartmentalized? And the second one is, if there are 5 members of a company who have the same kind of behavior, will there be a problem? Okay, so they all have the same temperament. Would there be a problem? Are they, so those two are related to the other one. If you just add a few words on those, then we can look at other. There's so many questions coming, so we just do them snappy so we can answer as many as possible.
Okay, that's fine. Now, when it comes to temperaments, people may behave the same way outwardly, and you'll be surprised they may not have the same temperament, because our background, our exposure, our education, the kind of training that we've had cannot influence our behavior. And so you have somebody who is actually a melancholy in terms of temperament, but because of training and exposure, outwardly they behave like sanguines. And so it's difficult to just look at behavior and assign temperaments to people. And so they may be behaving the same way, but I can assure you the probability of they being the same temperament is very slim. There will definitely be variations, yes.
Okay. So the next question is, how do you manage your stress level when you know you have a lot to do in a day?
Okay, that's fine. There is a difference between doing a lot of work and being productive. You know, there's a time limit within which you are most productive. The rest of the time, you are just spending time on the job. You are not being productive. And so you should be able to tell the difference. And it comes with planning. There are certain things that you can leave till the next day. And that's why I spoke about planning. And so when you go through the task, what are the things that are urgent and important? What are the things that you can just look at for 5 minutes and quickly push away so that you can concentrate on the more important things which may be very important but may not be that urgent. And so it takes planning. So when we are overwhelmed with work, the high probability is that we are not planning adequately. Or sometimes we may need help planning. And so anytime you're overwhelmed and it looks like you have so much to do, and every day there's still so much to do, it's always good to have an audit of your task. And so all the time you are spending, if you are working 8 hours a day, maybe out of the 8 hours, you may have only 3 to 5 hours where you are very efficient. The rest of the time, you are just sitting down. I mean, you are just spending time working, but you may not be that productive. And so planning, and when we are still overwhelmed, it's good to have somebody who understands, take us through an audit, a time audit, vis-a-vis the task that we have to perform. Then they'll be able to help us reshape our work schedule and assign quality time to those tasks that we need to perform and perform well. And whilst we still spend time on those ones that we can do later, but we do it in such a way that everything that we have to tackle will have to be done well, without necessarily spending so much time glued to your desk and at the end of the day, not being able to do much.
All right, thank you so much. So you have to prioritize, you have to look for, sometimes there are things you don't have to do. There are things others have to do. So you have to learn the Pareto principle. It's called the 20-80 rule. Most of the time, only 20% of the work that you do give you 80% of the results. So check your work schedule and see which 20% are more important that will give you 80% of your results, and focus your time on that. Thank you so much. Doc, there's another question here. What do you do if your subordinates do things behind you? So that's one question. And that's from Christiana. And Albert says, Doc, thanks for the presentation. Delegation must go with supervision. I think that is in relation to the first question you answered. Then Jerry asked again, how do you manage criticism and not take it personal? So maybe that can be tied to the first question of what your subordinates do things behind you. I don't know if it's related, but how do you manage criticism and not take it personal? If you can answer those two together, then we will see.
Okay. Yeah, so when people are doing things behind you, it depends on what they are doing. Because there are certain things that are not things that we should bother our heads about. I mean, the little gossips here and there. And once you are a leader, trust me, most of the time, your subordinates may have a behind your back name for you. So those things you can't do without. You don't want to be bothered about all these things. What matters is that you have a system of control that enables people to do what is required of them in terms of their work output. Remember, they also have their private moments in the office. And so sometimes you cannot interfere with those ones and the kind of things that they do, so long as they are not using official time for those things. They are not things that you can control. So I wouldn't bother too much about the little details, the little gossips. What happens is, if it is threatening team spirit, then it becomes a problem. Then you will have to address it. And so from time to time, it's good to meet your team, find out how things are going, and always get them to understand that we are better as a team. It doesn't matter how good you are as an individual. Without a team, you may not be that effective. And so it's always good to be there and know that we are interdependent. And so it's not a matter of you trying to outdo the other person. Because human nature being what it is, people come with a whole lot of baggage. So it's up to us as leaders to be able to work with that baggage and still get the best out of them. So whilst not worrying too much about the little details that do not spoil anybody's work. I will say keep an eye and have a system of control so that nobody's behavior will compromise the team spirit. And so for me, don't be too concerned about things that they do if it does not have any adverse effect on teamwork and on their delivery. The second aspect of the question has escaped me a bit. If you could please
How do you manage criticism and not take it personal?
Yes. Criticism. So most of the time, if you understand that people will definitely have something to say about everything you do, you need to analyze what they are saying. Is there any truth in it? Is there any truth in it? If there is, no matter how little it is, we could look at it and try to use that to make ourselves better. On the other hand, there are some people who actually condemn and not criticize. And so if we see that the person has a habit of trying to throw spokes in the wheels of people, just to get them discouraged or demotivated, then we have to deal with that kind of individual by educating them that you welcome criticism and constructive ones at that. So whilst you are criticizing, let me know the option that I have. If, for instance, you don't think it's too good if I do it this way, what are the suggestions? So when we begin to deal with them that way and begin to let them understand that it's not just about throwing criticisms, it's also about making useful suggestions that will help the person change. And so we will have to know how to steer the person away from just destructive criticism into constructive ones. At the same time, keeping an open mind. Keeping an open mind, because sometimes when we read too much meaning into what people say, it can get us discouraged. But sometimes those who criticize us make us better. But let's also encourage them to be constructive. Because whilst we are doing that, we are helping them also to learn. That's not just about saying what is not good, but how do you think we can make it better? And so both ways we benefit, we build each other up. The person becomes better at criticizing, and we also get better at looking positively at the criticism. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Doc, Amenyo ask, is the eight hour sleep really achievable in the current times? That's a good question I wanted to ask because I'm not sure I've had 8 hours of sleep in a very, very long time. So is it practicable?
Yeah, it is. It is. You see, most of the time, it has to do with the time we choose to go to bed.
Okay.
Frankly speaking, if you do an audit of your nighttime activities, sometimes you realize that we choose to get certain things done before we go to bed. And so if I know that I need 8 hours of sleep and I must be up by 4 a.m., it means that I know what time I need to go to bed. But if I don't train myself to go to bed at that time, that is where the issue comes in. And so we need to train ourselves for bedtime when we understand that we need this number of hours of sleep, because it is proven that continually depriving yourself of sleep can be harmful to you. Because you see, when you don't give yourself that length of sleep regularly, I agree that once in a while certain things happen and you may need to give yourself a shorter period of sleep, but that doesn't become the norm. And so normally we should aim at a good quality of sleep, and preferably 8 hours. It can be done. It can be done, because if I decide that instead of sitting down to watch the late news on whatever channel or to watch my favorite program, and I know that I need to be up early by 4 or 5 the following day to get ready for work so that I'm not late and with the traffic and everything, then it means that I must adjust my my life from the office between coming home and the time I go to sleep. So it's just a matter of you deciding how to gain that time so that you use it for sleep.
Thank you very much. I think Coach Sarah Jesiapia would like to add something to the sleep question. So Kofi, can bring Sarah up so she can share some thoughts on the sleep question. It's very important because it affects our mental health a lot and we don't recognize it. Sarah, you are muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Doc, I have been a sufferer of sleep for quite a long time. You know, I normally have just 4 hours sleep, and sometimes I go for 3 days without sleeping because of some medical issues that I've had.
Sarah, you are frozen.
I'm frozen?
Looks like Sarah is frozen.
Okay, but on my
Doc,
side...
can you hear her?
Yeah, I can hear her.
On my side, it's working. Yeah.
But you were, well,
yeah,
you were frozen.
I've done a little bit of research into sleep because I've been a sufferer of that. And what I found, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. What I found out is that apparently there's something called chronotype. Some people need 8 hours of sleep. Some people need 6. Some people need 4. So could you talk a little bit into that if you have some knowledge regarding that? Thank you.
That's fine. You know, the 8 hours is actually based on the time that it takes your body to fully regenerate itself. So that's how come the 8 hours came about. And so from about 9 p.m., when the body starts to regenerate itself, that is, it directs blood flow to different parts of the body from about that's 9 up to say 4 or 5 a.m. And so when you deprive yourself of sleep and sleep for that short period, what happens is that the time that the body has to do the total regeneration is shortened. And so the body only gets to do those parts that it's able to do whilst you have that short period of sleep. And so over time, if a particular organ doesn't get regenerated over and over again, that organ begins to suffer. When that organ is suffering from the beginning, the other organs or the other systems will start supporting that organ somehow. And then when the burden gets too much for them, as happens when you are trying to support somebody even physically, after a period, you realize that your own energy is getting compromised. And so the other parts will also let go to take care of themselves. And that is what you call a disease, because the functioning of that particular organ becomes compromised. And the result of that malfunction or underfunctioning can begin to show as symptoms. And so that is the principle behind the 8 hours of sleep, especially when it goes on for a very long time. And so that's why sometimes when you have this kind of a problem, you need to see a sleep therapist to help you to sleep for as long as you can under your circumstances. And so that is the reason for that, because some people will tell you, I know, I have a colleague at the office who tells me that with 4 hours of sleep, she's fine. Yeah, sometimes you will feel fine because the other parts of the body are helping. But over time, when it becomes prolonged over a very long time or over a certain period, the effects will begin to show and it will not be too good.
All right. So thank you so very much, Doc, for that. I think that is exhaustive. Now, this is Collinson. I think this is a follow-up on a question you answered about sanguine and confidentiality. He says, Doc, do you you mean it's not about relationship but about confidentiality? Collins, I think the point here was that, you know, sanguines can be so relational that they can easily divulge certain confidential information. So sometimes you have to bring the attention to the fact that, you know, this matter is about confidentiality and you have to keep it. Then Michael is asking, what do you do when not being able to achieve your goals in a day makes you more stressed? What do you do? Every day you have your targets and you are not able to achieve them. What do you do? And I think Benjamin is saying that on Saturday evenings, if I do not listen to your presentations, I have to do 8 hours of sleep. Should I listen to you then? All right. So, Benjamin, listen to us and then prolong your sleep time. Wake up later. Thank you very much. I think this will help. So, will you address Michael's question about being stressed when you are not able to achieve your targets for the day? You know, as leaders, you have your objectives you want to achieve, and then you get stressed.
Yes. So that is where the audit is good. You look at your plan, whether you have an effective plan in place. Sometimes you have a plan and we still go firefighting. And so the plan is thrown overboard. And because people know that they can get us to do firefighting, they always approach us and we'll throw our plans overboard, see to them, and then later come to sit down to try and accomplish the task. And so we need a lot of self-discipline as well in following through with our plans. So assuming we do everything right, we have plans in place, we are able to separate what is urgent, what is important, what is not so important, what is not so urgent, and so on and so forth, and do the necessary prioritization and all that. And still realize that we are overwhelmed because we've been assigned too much. Then we can discuss with the supervisor. We can discuss with the supervisor, and it's not just going to say that I have too much to do. If you have done a thorough analysis, a thorough audit of your task vis-a-vis the time that you have to work every day, any good supervisor will know if you are making a valid point and if they need to offload certain tasks so that you have time to work more efficiently and not be overwhelmed. And so it starts with you looking at it objectively and answering some very honest questions. If you notice you are doing too much firefighting, it will be good to discipline yourself in terms of that one, so that you are better able to stick to your plans and prioritize and do all that is necessary, and only go and ask for help if you realize that you are really doing a good job at planning, at prioritizing and all that, but there certainly is too much in terms of the task assigned to you. Then the supervisor or whoever can take a second look at it.
All right, thank you so very much. I think there is one more follow-up on the sleep question, and it says, can the 8 hours be divided into 2 parts? Part in the afternoon and one in the
evening. That's interesting.
Yes.
You see, the experts tell us that nighttime sleep is not the same as the sleep that you have during the day. It certainly helps to have a nap during the day. So you realize that sometimes a nap of about 20 to 30 minutes revives you so much, because that is just a bit of time to regenerate that you have. But the night sleep is for the body to take care of itself. So they are two different things. You cannot break your night sleep into 2 parts.
All right, thank you so much. All right, I'm not seeing any more questions here on my. Thank you for the presentation. My question is, what role does stress play in the mental health of leaders? What, George Akwabli, what role does stress play in the mental health of leaders?
Okay. Now, normally when you talk about stress, when there is anything that your brain considers as a stress, there is a reordering of your body system. There is that response that we call the fight or flee, or you can add or freeze. And so when there's perceived danger, the brain has to help the body equip itself to either fight or to flee. And you require a lot of energy for that. And so the endocrine system and other systems go into action to do the equipping. And so normally stress will increase the rate of your heartbeat. It will pump more blood to your limbs so you can run or fight if need be. And it has secreted a hormone called cortisol, which is a stress hormone, into your system. Now this happens, and the cortisol, what it does is because there is an alert from the body, as if to say there's danger, prepare. And so when the cortisol is secreted, it suppresses the immune function of the body to conserve energy that will be used to fight or flee. And so this is, in effect, a brief summary of what the stress situation is. So the stress situation gets your body to go into a mode which requires a lot of energy, increased heartbeat, to pump blood to your limbs, so that for your legs, so that you can run, your hands, so that you have to fight if need be, and all that. So when it goes on regularly, and cortisol is being secreted regularly, and the immune system gets suppressed to conserve energy for the fight or flee response, over a period, suppressing the immune system will definitely means that the body's ability to combat and fight invasions of disease causing vectors effectively is compromised. And so over time, it will start exhibiting certain diseases. And so that is why prolonged stress is not a good thing. A little amount of stress gets us going. So a little amount motivates us. It kicks us to do something. But prolonged stress, and when it continues like that, because of the immunosuppression action of the hormone called cortisol, it can become a problem, from mental to physical problems, anything. And so that is why prolonged stress is not a good thing. And that is why we normally seek to counter the effect of stress with things that give us happiness. So when you find yourself in that state of feel good through fun activities and the things that make you laugh and just go easy on yourself, then you have the other one secreted called dopamine. So dopamine neutralizes the effect of cortisol. That is why you need a balance. That's why you need a balance. So if you see yourself overly stressed too many times over a long period, it is not a good thing. So it's not just for the emotional or mental health, but your overall health can be compromised because of the immunity suppressing function of the stress hormones. I hope that helps.
All right, thank you so very much. There was one more question, but I think Aiko Kofi, will you bring that up? There was a question about, there was one question. Okay, one more question. I think the first one is gone. Can one induce his sleep if it is a problem, and with what?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, normally what we advise is that you have a transition between work and sleep. And so when you come from work, You need a period where you go easy on yourself. Maybe you have some family time, have some light-hearted moments, chatting, engaging with family and friends, in a manner that just relaxes you. And so 2 hours to the time of sleep, when you engage in that kind of thing, the body goes from work mode to relaxation mode. And so when you go to bed, you are able to fall asleep more easily and have a good quality of sleep. But when you are glued to your telly, watching movies that make you tensed up, watching news items that tense you up, having conversations that tense you up, trying to solve problems and all that. And so you jump from that mode of active, like an active work life, a high alert mode, and you try to go to sleep. Even when you do, there is something that follows you. And so you end up having busy dreams and you wake up more tired because you didn't allow the body system to relax and get into sleep mode. And so the transition is very important. And then we need to make sure that our bedroom is comfortable. Sometimes if the lighting system in the bedroom is too much, it can affect our sleep. That is why God made the night when there is darkness for sleep. Unfortunately, civilization has created another day out of night with electricity. And so we will have to control the lighting system in the bedroom. We have to control the amount of light that we are exposed to prior to going to bed and even in the bedroom to help us. Then the temperature is important. When it's hot in the bedroom, it's difficult falling asleep. So we need to do some work on that. Ventilation is another thing. Our sleeping area needs to be well ventilated. And so that when we have a good circulation of air, of fresh air, it helps us to fall asleep and sleep well. Sometimes before you go to bed, there are some beverages that help us sleep. When you take something like this chamomile tea, as an example, mint, rooibos tea, and all those teas that don't have caffeine in them. They help relax our nerves and help us fall asleep and stay asleep better. And so these are some of the things that we can do. But the transition is very, very important. And all the other measures that I've mentioned. I hope that helps.
That helps very much. Thank you very, very much, Doc. We are at the end of the 1.5 hour mark, and we want to respect and honor your time. And this has been very, very insightful. A lot of comments, a lot of questions and contributions here and there. So, Doc, I think I will just ask you to just give us your closing remarks. There's quite a lot of comments. We can share them later on, but we don't want to overshoot the time. So
okay,
if you can give us your closing remarks, we would appreciate it. And we want to take opportunity to thank everybody who was on the call, those who were able to ask questions, those who were able to make comments. We encourage you to continue to make your comment, to share, and to invite more people. Next week, we're going to have another very, very, very important and interesting topic. Just keep your ears open. I'm not going to leak the secrets because I'm a sanguine. And thank you, Doc. So give us your closing remarks.
Yeah, mental health issues are very wide in scope. And so with one session like this, it's very difficult to cover every area of concern. And so that's why we normally have ongoing support as a counseling institution. And so we have support for individuals, for groups and corporate bodies. So we deal with a lot of things concerning mental health. Sometimes we have seminars, sometimes one-on-one sessions. And the times in which we are, for instance, this post-COVID period is going to bring a lot of need for mental health support. And so we have something like building resilience after for the post-COVID life, because there's going to be a lot of post-pandemic stress disorder because of the various losses. So it's one of the things that we can help the corporate organizations and individuals with. Overview of mental health and wellness. And then when it comes to retirement, it's another area where we need a lot of psychosocial support. So we do those things, communicating well as a leader to build healthy relationships, treating health, stress and anxiety, and everything to do with our emotional health and more. And so I think if they need to contact me, they can have my email address, my phone number,
you can share it.
WhatsApp number. You can contact me.
All right. Looks like
we lost her.
We lost Doc there, but I think please, if you want to have further follow-up, you can contact us at CTL Africa. You can give me a shout, 05407084433. That's my number. You can call me and we'll be able to connect you with Doc. And at the Center for Transformational Leadership, we have several training, and we can organize some of this for your organization, and individually we can arrange it. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a very, very good evening and a good Sunday. Have 8 hours of sleep, at least today. Start from now, and rest your mind and regenerate your brain so that you can lead better. Thank you, and God bless you. Amen.